Hey everyone! Just wanted to give a few brief shoutouts to a few select individuals before jumping into today's video. The first is to Panzoid, a web-based graphic design software that I used to design my intro this time around. I was having some difficulty with my existing software and someone recommended the website to me, and it's been really amazing to use. It's been very easy and user-friendly, and the community involved in it is just as good. All of the content on there is community-based, and they're all created by the members, and you can use them and edit them however you want. Just remember to give credit to the creators, of course. And my second thanks is to Envoid, which is the creator of the template that I am currently using for my intro. So thanks to them, and thanks to you guys as well for being subbed for as long as you have. I wouldn't be going above and beyond to make my content better and more professional looking than I am without you guys. So without further ado, enjoy the rest of today's video. Thanks. What's going on, guys? I'm Z-Rec, and you're watching Argo, where I bring you some of the latest card fight content, news, and updates. In today's video, I'm going to be showcasing my premium build for Shadows. If you guys have been following me for the past few videos now, you'll know that I've been working on two different lists for Shadows, and this is the one that I've come to the conclusion is better than the other, just in terms of testing against each other and other matchups that are relevant to premium right now. So going into the list, I'm going to start with the main deck and then go into the G zone in terms of the quantity of the cards that I'm running, and then after I go over the quantity, I will go into detail as to why I chose certain options as my tech choices. So going into the main deck first, starting with the grade 3s, we are running 4 copies of Dragheart Luard and then 2 copies of the Dark Dictator. For grade 2s, we're running 3 copies of Dragfencer Dagda, 3 copies of Slaptail Dragon, 2 copies of Blaster Dark, and 2 copies of Skull Witch Nemain. For our grade 1s, we're running 4 copies of Dragsaver Esras, 4 copies of Drag Wizard Fuamnok, 4 copies of Blaster Javelin, 3 copies of Abyssal Owl, and 2 copies of Cherishing Knight Branwen. For our grade 0s, we're running 10 critical, 2 stand, and 4 heal. For our critical trigger lineup, 4 copies of Belial Owl, 4 copies of Darkside Trumpeter, 2 copies of Death Feather Eagle, 2 copies of Cursed Eye Raven, 2 copies of Abyss Healer, and 2 copies of Emancipating Revenger Allele. Our starter for the deck is OG Fullbow. Now for our strides, we're looking at 1 copy of Orgeyser Doomed, 1 copy of Orgeyser Dragon, 4 copies of Drag Abyss Luard, 1 copy of Zeroth Dragon of Zenith Peak Ultima. For G-Guards, we're running 2 copies of Plotmaker, 2 copies of Dark Veil, and then 1 copy of Bronok. For optional choices you can add to your G-Zone, you can also add 1 copy of Drag Anger Ogma and 1 copy of Drag Strider Luard. Now, going into the details of my tech choices, starting with the main deck, for grade 3s, of course, we're playing 2 copies of the Dark Dictator because we want some V-Series presence. It gives us an early game in case we miss ride, and allows us to still do things and interact with our opponent while not being at too big of a loss in terms of power plays and being aggressive through the early game. For my reason to play Luard from the trial deck, I do not like Dragfall Luard at all. I think it is a very lackluster version of himself and only a slightly better version of Claret Sword because it has the retire option instead of the plus power. And the Ritual X ability I think is very okay. It's good against certain matchups, but I like the aspect of being able to recycle more with Dragheart than I can with Dragfall. It allows me to stay in the game longer and have options during my turn going into my Dragabus turns, especially. If I don't have the correct options to push correctly, I will not be able to put as much pressure on that I could have if I had more access to options in the deck. And this comes with a balancing game of having just enough options in the main deck while also having enough cards in the drop zone to get that plus 20 or plus 30k off of Dragabyss's skill. So, for grade 2s, Dagda, of course, is a very important combo piece in terms of doing the multi-attack play on Dragabyss because it allows you to call out 2 new units during your battle phase. and just get an extra column attack off. So you're looking at, and also as a good way of setting up the drop zone. So you have an already existing, let's say, Slaptail and Flamknot column. You swing with that, and then you go Dagda, call over those two. So you just added 2 grade 1s to your drop zone. That may have just increased your front row bonus from 20k to 30k, and then also got you a guaranteed extra attack if you haven't swung with your Vanguard yet as well. And then for Slaptail, of course, he's still a very important piece because he still stacks and gets that extra little bit of power that can mean the difference between an extra 5k of shield that your opponent may or may not have, and it's another grade 1 target in the deck as well as in your drop zone to fuel ritual status. And then Blaster Dark. Blaster Dark is our new primary ride target for grade 2, which is why we're playing Blaster Javelin and the OG Full Bow starter. So playing Blaster Javelin, of course, you can, if you ride that over the OG Full Bow, you can search your deck for Blaster Dark and add it to your hand, therefore getting your guaranteed ride target for your grade 2 turn. And then Blaster Dark, of course, if you have the right setup and your opponent has no board, you're allowed to get Twin Drive. So another great way to just add hand advantage and put on pressure early game while not making yourself too much, and including options like the old Skull Witch Domain, which allows you to filter and draw cards without having to worry about losing hand in terms of calling units to your board, while also allowing you to set up ritual status for Luard. And then for grade 1s, Esras, of course, is still our best PG, so we're going to be playing 4 of that. Some builds I saw are playing 2 and 2. I personally find that very inconsistent, and there's almost no need to be playing Maclear because you have giant G-guards and giant trigger values in terms of shield. So not worried about that at all. And the PG aspect is just really nice for certain matchups. For Flamknot, of course, is our other main combo piece for the multi-attack play. At Ritual 5 at GB2, you're allowed to give her +7 and resist. So as long as you have Luard as your Vanguard, that's fine, and you'll be able to go into multi-attack plays no problem. And then for Blaster Javelin, of course, we established that he's comboed with Full Bows, so you have a guaranteed ride target for grade 1 as well as for grade 2. And then in general, his skill is very good if you have the proper setup. You can draw extra cards and not have to worry about negging your hand for calling units out. So you're maintaining higher sets of hand advantage as well as maintaining a board presence and establishing power. And for Branwyn, of course, Stride Fodder, because we're not playing Drag Fall, we can play Cherishing Knight just in case we misride or we're up against the Deleter matchup and we need a hard stride, which is fine. Some people were saying to play Swordbreaker Angel. I don't see a reason to play her anymore. I used to play her at 3 during the GBT 14 and Divas Festa meta because I needed the draw power. Now with options like Blaster Javelin, there's no longer a need to be playing her, and having the lower use of Soul allows me to further abuse Dragobus' skill in terms of calling a board and establishing power. So 2 copies of Branwyn will allow me to compensate for not being able to stride in certain situations or misriding or going up against certain matchups like Deleters. Abyssal Owl, of course, our grade 3 searcher for Luard and allows us to countercharge if necessary. So good options there. And then triggers, Belial Owl, still important. And then the 6 trial deck triggers, of course, are there for the shield value, so I'm not too worried about that. They're also there for the enhanced trigger values as well. And then the 2 and 2 heals. 2 of the heals, of course, are going to be for the early game, just in case I run into, let's say, a Royal Paladin matchup where I need higher shield value going into their grade 3 turn. I have the options there. And then once I go into situations where I need a G-Guard, Aaliyah will allow me to activate her skill to then countercharge or soul charge and get my resources back that way. And then Curse Eye Raven, of course, is still a very good filter card for certain important combo pieces, as well as a trigger that recycles itself, so we're not going to be worrying too much about not having access to trigger ratios. For our strides, Doomed is still very good as a first stride, just because it allows you to set up hand, clear your opponent's board, and just generate tons of hand advantage. You can't do that with Dragobus unless you're playing the ritual stuff, and even then I would highly advise against that, just because there's almost no reason to do that. Dragobus is meant for your push turns, that's about it. I wouldn't want to use him and waste the opportunity to push with him outside of trying to gain a hand advantage, because he's not good for that. His skills aren't meant for that. His skills are meant for filling a board relatively easily. Doomed is meant for generating hand advantage as well as clearing an opponent's board. So good on that reason there. Dragobus, of course, because of the plus 10 for every 4 grade 1s in drop, is very easy to do and very easy to multiply up to 20 or 30k. Is very good for pushing during the mid game, especially compared to decks that rely more on gift markers to push power. This way, you're guaranteed you're guaranteed a ton of power that would normally require 6 to 9 grade 3 rides in order to get that many force markers in the first place. So, good on that regard. And then for G-Guards, 2 Plot Maker, of course, is standard. It's an easy 25k shield. And then for Dark Veil, for later situations where you need that much more shield value, you can push anywhere from 25 to 35k in terms of total shield value off of his skill. And then Bronok is a one-time setup G-Guard that you would use first to set up ritual status and just filter your deck out so you have a much higher probability of checking triggers, as well as setting up your drop zone for ritual status and giving yourself targets to go into later with Luard. The optional techs like Drag Strider and Ogma are meant for very, very situational scenarios. Like, for example, your opponent has a very small hand and has no board. You would go into Ogma because you're guaranteed to clear their entire hand. Drag Strider is about the same, minus the board part. But Drag Strider falls very far behind the mark because of the new shield values that you can get from V-Series, as well as V-Series draw trigger perfect guards that get around his skill of not being able to guard with Sentinels, because his skill was meant for just the grade 1 Sentinels that existed before, not the new ones. So, and then Ultima, of course, is your finisher. You're going to be playing Ultima because it's a guaranteed plus 30k to each of your columns if you still have the triggers in your deck. And otherwise than that, you get essentially 2 new units to your board and a ton of power. That is it for this deck profile. If I missed anything, let me know. I'll go in the comments and answer them later. I don't think I missed anything, but if I did, let me know in the comments below, and I'll touch base with you there. If you have any thoughts about the tech choices, leave those in the comments as well. I'd love to see what you have to say, but those are my reasons for why I play these certain tech choices, and I think it's the overall more optimal list. There are some tech choices you could also make as well, like instead of playing Brandwind, you can play Samia's, which is basically a counterblast clone of Cursed Eye Raven, and the units come in as stand instead of as rest. So stuff like that was a good choice. There are options to be played there as well. So if you guys enjoyed, though, be sure to leave a like, and if you guys want to see more content from me, be sure to subscribe. I will be doing more content as well, of course, as always. So thank you again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.